Shashtham manumapi Shachiputram matra swarupam Rupam tasyagrajam purupurim maturim goshtavatim Radha kundam girivaram aho radhika madhavasam Prapto yasya prasita kripaya Sri Gurum Tang Natosmi Nindantam pulakot karena vikasat Nipa prasuna chavim Prodvikritya bhujadvayam hari hari tyuchar vadantam muhu Gayantam galadasru nirjarachayai sinchantamurvitalam Gayantam nijapasadai parivritam Tam Gaurachandram stumaham Ari paripālitah pravalitah Sanandamalokitah Pratyasam sumanah palodaya vidho samodamamodita Vrindaranya bhuvi prakasha madhura sarvati saisriya Radha madhavayo Radha madhavayo pramodayatu mam Ulalasa kalpadrumah Ulalasa kalpadrumah Jaya Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghuna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghuna Echoy Gosai Rakori Charana Bandhan Jaha Hoite Vignana Abhishta Puran Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Right, so we finished the 5th Anuched yesterday. And now today we start on the 6th Anuched, but not before we review the last verse of the 5th Anuched. So we went through all this discussion. It's still, probably not crystal clear in my mind all the way through. but all the stages that were talked about in Vishnu Purana, and so on, to talk about Brahman realization. So what's the difference between the Jiva Goswami sees Brahman realization and the way that the Advaitavadi sees Brahman realization, and what is the relationship between the two? And who understands it better? So, we finished the Brahman realization, and now he wants to talk about Sakshatkar. You have Brahma Sakshatkar, and now Brahma Sakshatkar, it becomes changed according to Priti. So according to the way that you love God, that's the way that God reveals himself to you. So that's good. That's good. That's the way it should be. So you, according to the way that you're attracted to God, the way that you're attracted, the way you feel in relationship to Krishna, to a particular form of Krishna, in a particular way of feeling about Krishna. And not just the idea of the Father, for instance. Right? At any rate, so yesterday's verse, as I recall it, just to remind us of where we were. There we go. All right, so what's the verse? Let's just remember here what Prahlad was telling the other asuras. Right? You just kids, start now. Don't waste any time. Stop hanging out with demons, with people who are attached to sense gratification. Tato vidurat parihritya daityeshu sangam vishayatmakeshu upeta narayanamadi devam samukta sangairishito pavargaha. So he's been telling the boys that you're children, but you should start to engage in the Bhagavata dharmas right from your childhood. Life is short. You don't know when death is going to come. And this human form of life is durlabham. Just because you lose it doesn't mean you're going to get it again. Don't think that, oh yeah, I'm just going to get a human form of life. You act like an animal now, you're going to end up being an animal in your next life also. So, tamo gun and sattva gun depends on your guna. Anyhow, tato vidurat parihritya daityeshu sangam vishayatmakeshu upeta narayanamadi devam samukta sangarishito pavarga. So this is the part that he wants. So Sri Prahlad said, therefore, O Daityas, shunning the company of the Daityas from afar, who have set their minds on the object of the senses, take shelter of Bhagavan Narayana, the prime deity. He is the liberation desired by those who have become free from all attachments. So this is the Atma Rama idea is being expressed here again. Right? So he is the liberation desired by those who have become free from attachment. So they're already liberated. So what's the liberation for those who are already liberated? Right? So the idea is that in liberation you have both. You have something about you've left something behind, but you've also gone to something else. So the state of being liberated, the state of being free from attachment, the state of desiring nothing else other than Krishna, other than Bhagavan, that state is what people want to be liberated really desire. So the liberated people actually desire, but that desire is very deeply hidden. So that was the verse that Prahlad was terminating his instructions to the Daitya boys. Get your act together. Shun the company of the Daityas. He's telling this to 5-year-old children. Like, how are these children going to shun the company of their parents and their teachers? Take shelter of Bhagavan Narayana, the prime deity. So the point was here to say he is the liberation. So Jiva Goswami in his commentary, the basic idea of the commentary was that you have to, the liberation is not in itself simply Krishna seeing, or just simply seeing Krishna is actually not the liberation in itself. There has to be some connection there. If you see Krishna but you don't have any love for him, well, it's just you won't see him, that's all. And those who see Krishna everywhere, they have no trouble seeing him. So, atra narayanasya apavargatvam tathāśiṣo eva paryavasyati. So the idea that Narayana is liberation ultimately means that that liberation is in seeing or coming into direct contact with him, in realizing him. So tasya eva samsara dhvangsa purvaka paramānandaḥ rupa tva. Right? Why? Because this is the nature of seeing Krishna. It doesn't happen unless your samsara has been dhvangsa. Your samsara has to be destroyed before you can see Krishna. Samsara dhvangsa purvaka. So once that's gone, well, look at all the ananda that will come flowing in. Paramānandaḥ. So that is the nature of liberation. You'd expect that liberation would mean the cessation of suffering, samsara dhvangsa purvaka, and the attainment of happiness or the attainment of bliss, paramānandaḥ. So that's the definition of liberation as we are taking it as the prayojan, having both of those things being involved. So, samsara dhvangsa purvaka paramānandaḥ rupa tva. So that is why it is liberation, but it's a different kind of liberation. It's the liberation that we've been talking about in terms of Bhagavat relationship. Okay, samsara dhvangsa purvaka paramānandaḥ rupa tva. So that is the sakshatkara. That's when you see, that's why the sakshatkara is liberation. But tad astitva matratve tadrisha tva bhavat cha. But just his own existence, just by existing, just by being present everywhere, that doesn't mean that everybody is liberated. You have to, there has to be something more, and that something more is Priti. At any rate, that is where we are, and now we're going to go into today's verse. So now this is Anuched number 6, so it's a short one. But now the idea is that we're getting it still, the title was given, Direct Realization of Bhagavan is the Real Puruṣārtha. So obviously, Jiva Goswami is trying to tell us that this is better than Brahman realization. He's already told us 100,000 times. So by now we should have it in our thick skulls that there's something better about Bhagavan realization than there is about Brahman realization. It's not really up for debate. Okay, the verse for today. So now this is Dhruva Maharaj. So now Dhruva Maharaj, we know the story of Dhruva Maharaj, right? So Dhruva Maharaj, he goes into the forest. He's been insulted by his stepmother, who tells him that he's not ever going to sit on the throne of his father's kingdom. And his brother, his stepmother's son, that he would inherit the whole kingdom. And Dhruva would have nothing. He would not even be permitted to sit on his father's lap and get a little bit of affection from his father. So Dhruva's spirit of rebellion rose, and he left home, and he went to the forest, and he met Narada, and he asked him, how I'm going to show them. I will show my father, I will show my mother what I can do. Tell me how I can get a kingdom greater than that of my grandfather, meaning Brahma himself. Lord Brahma, I want a kingdom better than Lord Brahma. I want to show my father what I'm made of. Let him see what a kshatriya is. Right? So he came into the forest and he met Narada. Oh, my little lad, what puts you in the forest here all alone? What are you up to? And so Dhruva was a little child, and he saw a sage, and so he told him everything. So Narada said, well, you worship Narayan. His mother told him already. Worship Narayan. He said, okay, you worship Narayan. You're right. So I'm your guru, I give you a mantra. You use this mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And so Dhruva, our heroic little Kshatriya hero, he is going to show it. He's going to show the world just what a powerful yogi he is going to be. And so he worships the mantra given to him by Narada. And after whatever it is, he gets intenser and intenser and intenser and intenser, unthinkable austerities. Unthinkable austerities, giving up all food, practically giving up breathing, so that his breath became one with the underlying breath of the universe. When he inhaled, then the entire universe moved with his inhalation. And when he exhaled, so it was with the whole world. So that was a bit disturbing for the world. Not altogether, but the gods, they were thinking, this guy is too powerful. He's dangerous. So they went to Narayan and said, Narayan, it is time that you gave this boy what he wants. Otherwise, he's going to cause trouble. And so Narayan came. And when Dhruva saw Narayan, then what did he realize? He realized that just the sight of Narayan had calmed all his desires. He wanted really nothing else. And he even became ashamed because Krishna did go and give him a planet, the Dhruva Loka, which is practically speaking like a Vaikuntha world in this world. It's the pole star. It's the one star that doesn't move, but remains overhead. So that's the pole star. So that's Dhruva. So that was what Krishna gave to Dhruva, as Narayan gave to Dhruva as a prize in fulfillment of his desire to have a kingdom greater than that of Brahma, because to have a Vaikuntha planet. So Dhruva is a very high status Brahmarshi or Rajarshi. So here, this is his famous. Now, this is, although this statement here now, this statement is a paraphrase of an idea that always comes up. So that which I just said, right? The real one, the famous one. The famous one. So I know this one here. Sthana bilasi tapasi stitoham tvam praptavan deva munindra guhyam kacham vichinvan api divya ratnam swamin kritarthosmi varanayate. Swamin kritarthosmi varanayate. So this verse is not from the Bhagavatam. This is from a book called Hari Bhakti Sudodhaya, which was obviously written after the Bhagavatam. But Hari Bhakti Sudodhaya is mostly about Prahlad and about Dhruva. So this verse comes from that. So this is the same idea that we're going to have from the Bhagavatam. But the verse as it's expressed here, the way that it's spoken in the Hari Bhakti Sudodhaya is a little bit more direct and at the same time sweet in a way, not as complicated as the Bhagavata verse. We'll see the Bhagavata verse in a minute. I'm going to give you the idea, the rasa first. And then after we've sort of gotten the rasa, then we'll go and see the way the Bhagavata tells the rasa. Then we can think. How is the Bhagavata idea relate to the later idea? At any rate, let's go to this idea. So, sthana vilasi tapasi stitoham. I was situated in tapasya in order to get stature, right? To have power, to be a great king. And then tvam praptavan. I was situated thus, but I got you. Tvam praptavan. Deva munindra guhyam. You who are not attainable by the gods or the munis, even the great sages. So it's like kacham vichinvan api divya ratnam swamin kritarthosmi varanayate. Varanayate. You don't have to give me anything. Don't embarrass me, because I desired previously for so many things. And I came and I worshipped you only to get those material things. And now you're you're shaming me by giving me those things. You've given me a vision of you, and now you're taking it away. That's not so nice. So, you're taking it away because I had desires. And now you're fulfilling those desires, and those desires themselves have become a barrier between us. That's how Dhruva is feeling. But for the time being, at any rate, he says, what else do I want now? In the beginning, I wanted so the whole idea there about giving, fulfilling the desires, but in such a way that they'll be led towards Krishna, where those desires can either be purified or where those desires can be aligned with the desire for Krishna Bhakti. So, Bhagavatam. So this I'm giving you this was the verse from the Hari Bhakti Sudodhaya. So the same context as what we're seeing now. That Dhruva. So what's the verse? Satyāśiṣo hi bhagavaṁs tava pāda-padmam āśīs tathānubhajataḥ puruṣārtha-murti evam arya Bhagavān paripāti dīnān vāśreva vatsakam anugraha-kātaro'smān satyāśiṣo hi bhagavaṁs tava pāda-padmam āśīs tathānubhajataḥ puruṣārtha-murti evam arya Bhagavān paripāti dīnān vaśreva vatsakam anugraha-kātaro'smān. O Bhagavan, you are the Purushartha-murti. So that's really, this is what Jiva Goswami wants out of this verse. This is the important word that he wants. You're Purushartha-murti. So the form of, in this case, so Dhruva is seeing a form of Narayan. So he's saying to see Narayan, your form, this form that I'm observing here, that is the Purushartha. That is the ultimate goal of human life. So for those people who worship you, satyāśiṣo hi Bhagavans tava pāda-padmam āśīs tathānubhajataḥ puruṣārtha-murteḥ evam arya Bhagavān paripāti dīnān vāśreva vatsakam anugraha-kātaro'smān. So even though there are so many, oh Bhagavan, you are the embodiment of the ultimate goal. Compared with other boons, only your feet are a true blessing for those who always worship them in that way. Yet just as a cow that has recently calved nourishes and protects its calf, you foster even lowly devotees like us, being impatient to shower your grace upon them. That's pretty good. Oh Bhagavan, you are the embodiment of the ultimate goal. Compared with other boons, only your feet are a true blessing for those who always worship them in that way. Yet, just as a cow that has recently calved nourishes and protects its calf, you foster even lowly devotees like us, being impatient to shower your grace upon them. ṭīkā ca. Hey Bhagavan, Purusharthaḥ, paramānandaḥ, sa eva murtihi yasya tasya tava pāda-padmam āśīso rajyadehi sakāshat satyāśiṣo paramārtha-phalam. Puruṣārthaḥ paramānandaḥ. So that's the meaning of Purushartha. It's the paramānandaḥ. Sa eva murtihi yasya. He whose form is composed, who is paramānandaḥ. So his, namely yours, pāda-padmam, your lotus feet, when compared to other awards or other boons like kingdom and so on, it is a true boon. It is a true benediction. The other things the other things are not really true benedictions because they are somehow or another connected to false goals. So that is the paramārtha-phalam, to see you, your lotus feet. Certainly so. So kasya tathā tena prakarena tvameva puruṣārthaḥ ity-ādikā nishkamataya anugraha-kātaro'smān. So, recognizing you in this way to be the ultimate goal, they worship you without any other desire. Yadapyevam tathapi he arya, he swamin, dīnān, sakamanapi asman ity-ādikā. So even though people who want to get you, they have to be free of all desires, you are so kind that we who worshipped you with some other desire, that did not stop you from showering your grace upon us, and otherwise giving us an idea of what the ultimate benediction is. Swami also comments, O Bhagavan, the ultimate goal of life, which is supreme bliss, is itself your form. Your lotus feet are the real blessing, which in comparison to other blessings, like kingdom, etc., they are the real blessing, for they bestow the fruit of the ultimate goal of life. This is certain. And for whom? For those who are regularly worshipping you in that way. In that way, meaning without any motive due to considering you alone as the Puruṣārtha. So if pleasing God is the Puruṣārtha, so that's the thing. So that's when you're acting without any motive. Your only motive is to attain the Puruṣārtha, which is Krishna. So, although such is the case, yet, O Master, Arya, you protect us who are lowly and full of desire. So that's the end of the commentary, that's the end of the parichet. So let's read what Satyanarayana has to say here. My eyes are really going bad, friends. Okay, so the Babaji's comment. In the previous Anuched, Sri Jiva Goswami first explained the meaning of Brahma Sakshatkara, or Brahma Sampatti, the wealth of realizing Brahman. He also established that in the state of Brahma Sakshatkara, the Jiva does not merge into Brahman or become absolutely one with it. Then, by referring to the dialogue between Jarabharat and King Rahugana, he concluded that the real Puruṣārtha is Bhagavat Sakshatkara and not the realization of Brahman. To fortify his conclusion, he refers to the prayers of Dhruva to Vishnu, who appeared before him after being pleased with his devotion. Dhruva was a boy of just 5.5 years of age and was not educated. He wished to recite prayers to Vishnu, but he did not have the ability to do it. Seeing this, Vishnu touched his cheek with a conch. This infused Dhruva with wisdom. The significance of this incident is that the prayers of Dhruva are not his compositions, but are the blessings of Vishnu. Thus, they are authoritative, like the Vedas. In this verse, Dhruva refers to Bhagavan as the embodiment of all the goals of life. He is Purushartha-murti. This word has never been used for Brahman in any other scripture. Dhruva here refers to himself as having desires because he first approached Vishnu with the desire to have a kingdom greater than that of even Brahma, and only later, after being purified by the grace of his Guru Narada and the performance of austerities, could he understand that Bhagavan himself is the ultimate boon. The same idea is beautifully expressed in Dhruva's prayers as given in Hari Bhakti Sudodaya. Sthana vilasi tapasi stitoham tvam praptavan deva munindra guhyam kacham vichinvana pitivyaratnam swamin kritartosmi varam nayache. Okay, well, I can't really see, but I think that's only 36 minutes. All right. Okay, that's a short one. I was thinking, actually, to buttress the class by reflecting a little bit on the prayers of Dhruva. Excuse me for my non-sadachar way of drinking water. All right. Well, I'm not going to do it too much, but I thought that, to go back and look at the entirety of those prayers that I think of them here. All right. Okay, well, I thought I would enjoy one or two of them. Well, so the most important of those prayers, I think, again, so the theme has been given. Oh, ho, ho. Here we go. Yeah. Okay, so how does it go? So it's a pretty good prayer, actually. So 4.6 is one, and 9.6 was one. That's the first verse. Right? Dhruva speaks. Yontah pravishya mama vacham imam prasuptam sanjivayat yakhila shakti dhara swadhamna anyascha hasta charana sravana tvagadin pranan namo bhagavate puruṣārthaḥ. Pranan namo bhagavate puruṣārthaḥ. So the one who has entered into my words, which were asleep, and you sanjivayati, you gave them life, because you are the Akhila Shakti Dhara. You possess all powers. And so swadhamna sanjivayati, with your own effulgence, right? With your own effulgence, you bring others to life. You bring my words to life. And what just speak of my words, and actually it's everything, not just my words. Anyang chahasta charana sravanatvagadin pranan. But you're bringing to life all the life airs that operate my body. It all comes from you, from your grace. So therefore, Bhagavate Puruṣāya Tubhyam. So that's the first verse that comes to Dhruva's mouth. So he's just from 6 to 17. There's only 12 verses. And the most notable one, here he's going on. Nunam, this is verse 9. Nunam vimushtamatayastava mayayate ye tvam bhavapyaya vimokshanam anyaheto archanti kalpakatarum kunapopabhogyam ichanti yat sparshajam nirayepi nirnam. Pretty good stuff, Sanskrit-wise. So, nunam vimushtamatayastava mayayate ye tvam bhavapyaya vimokshanam anyaheto archanti kalpakatarum kunapopabhogyam ichanti yat sparshajam nirayepi nirnam. So surely their intelligence has been stolen from them, vimushtamate, stolen by Maya. Because here they are, here you are, the giver of all awards in this world and in the next, giving worldly experience, giving liberation. He can give you whatever you're seeking. And yet, for anya hetoho, rather than seeing him as the puruṣārtha, they think that something else is the puruṣārtha. They want some other artha. There's some other artha, there's some other value, there's some other purpose to their life. So that's kunapopabhogyam. So whatever they are looking for, it's kunapopabhogyam. Kunapa is a word for a corpse. Or upabhogyam, something that is to be upabhogyam, if it's possible to think of it, how does the dead man enjoy? The point is that the body is just a dead shell, and you're, instead of understanding what is the root self, the self that is eternally in contact with God, with Brahman, with Bhagavan, that's the one you should know, and everything else is just connected to the body and is ultimately going to pass with the body. The decoration of the body, what's that for? In some way, a little bit of fame will outlive your death for a few days or years or months or whatever. What good does that do you? So, he says, if you want something else other than the supreme absolute truth, you want to have that experience, that direct experience of the supreme absolute truth. And how are you going to go about it? What's the process for getting that thing? So people come to a tree, a desire tree, kalpakatarum, and instead of asking for that thing, that best thing, that thing which having, as we saw before, that having this, you'll have no other, you'll have had everything. There's no need for anything else besides this. This is it. So the sparshajam kunapopabhogyam, all that in the material world that comes of contact with the sense objects, that is also being experienced in hell. It's a very astute observation. People are having sex, they're enjoying sex in hell. They might be having very, very fun sex, but they're being strangled by it, right? It gets them deeper and deeper into a hellish mentality, their promiscuity. So in hell, they're living in hell, but they think that they're enjoying so nicely. So the one more verse here, this is real, the sparkler. This verse here is perhaps one of the more popular ones, because in this verse he also condemns Brahma Sakshatkar, right? So he says, Ya nivritis tanubhritam tava pāda-padmam dhyanad bhavada janakatha sravanena vasyat sa brahmani swamahimanyapinata mabhut Kim tvantakasi lulitat patatang vimanat. So, this verse will say, right, that the Brahma, the pleasure of Brahma, the pleasure of being situated in the Mahima, in the pure glory of Brahman's existence, right? So ya nirvritis, the ecstasy, the joy that comes to a living being by meditating on your lotus feet, or by hearing your topics through one of your devotees. So one of your advanced devotees, right? So that happiness. Brahmani swamahiyam manyapi natha ma bhut. So it's interesting, he says, why does he say ma bhut? Let it not be. But he doesn't really mean let it not be in the sense that, that happiness, let not that happiness be in Brahman. Don't let that happiness be there in Brahman happiness. Those who are Brahman happiness can't have this happiness. There, I said it, right? So anyway, the point is that Natha Mahabhut, he's saying it in a strong way, but he just means he's making a statement of fact. Don't even think of it. That's the kind of thing. Don't even, that's not an appropriate thing to think. That there can be equal bliss in Brahman knowledge as there is in bhakti to Bhagavan. So what to speak? So now as far as other boons are concerned, right, they're like pieces of broken glass. So here he says, Kin tvantakasi lulita tapatatang vibana. It's a kind of an interesting little phrase there, right? So antaka, asi. Now, antaka means death. The god of death is antaka, Yamaraj. And asi means the sword. So the sword of time, or the sword of death, right? The lulitat, so lulitat means wobbly, let's say. Vimanat, they're airplanes, or they're carriages, however you want to think about it. They're carriages. And the chariots, just like in a way, I mean, I think they use the word vimana for the carts in Jagannath Puri in the Rath Yatra. So those are vimanas, those are their great royal chariots. And of course they can fly, if they're the gods. So at any rate, that's the vimana. So these vimanas, when the sword of time comes, then these gods fall out of the planes. Let's call them planes just to be funny. Right? Out of their chariots, out of their divine vehicles, and they fall out of it. In other words, poof, they're finished. So even they are subject to time. So how can the benefits, even the greatest benefits, the pleasures of Swarga and the other higher planets, what do they have? They all come to an end. You don't have, where sense gratification is involved, that cannot be the highest plane of existence. End of story. Right? So that's a good verse. It's quoted often. Ya nirvritis-tanuvritam tava pāda-padmam dhyanad bhavada-janakata sravanena vasyat sa brahmani swamahimanyapinatam mabu. Don't even think of it. Kintwantaka siluditat patatan vibanat. So the happiness that comes from hearing, from meditating on your lotus feet, or from hearing one of your devotees talk about you, that pleasure is greater than any pleasure, even the pleasure of Brahman realization. Bhakti moho pravahatam tvayi me prasango bhuyad ananta mahatam amalashayanam yenan jasol banamuru vyasanam bhavabdhim Neshe bhavad gunakasamrita-pānamatta. So here's the prayer, right? So bhakti muhuk pravahatam tvayi me prasango bhuyat ananta mahatam amalashrayana. So these devotees and talks about you, they, if I'm in the association, I would like to hear these devotees who are pravahatam, who are blowing the breeze of Harikatha, who are speaking Harikatha. So they're making the waves pravahatam. They're making the wind blow constantly with discussions about you. It's blowing into me. Their katha is blowing bhakti into me. Their harikatha is blowing bhakti into me for you. So let such harikatha always be present for me. Bhuyat. With great souls who are free from all wickedness in their hearts. Dīnān jasol banamuru vyasanam bhavabdhim. So this world is a place of constant anxiety, and it is very powerful, but you can easily cross over it. Neshe bhavad gunakata amritapānamatta. By being drunk with drinking the liquor, the ambrosia of God, of your guna-kata, of your glorious attributes, your qualities. And te na smarantya-titaram priyamisha martyam ye chan vadak sutta suhrid griha vittadara ye tvabjana bhavavadiya padara vinda soganjalubda hridaye shukrita prasanga tena smarantya-titaram priyamisha martyam ye chanvada sutasidgaha vittadara ye tvabjanava bhavadiya padaravinda soganjalubda hridayeshu krita prasanga tena smarantya-titaram priyamisha martyam. So now these devotees, they never remember all those things that were previously dear to them, connected with this material body, and or the body itself, and everything that follows on from the body, like the sutta, suhrit, griha, vitta, dara. Ye chan vadak sutta suhrit, griha, vitta, dara. Sutta, sons, suhrit, friends, griha, home, vitta, wealth, dara, wife. So all these people ye tena smarantya-titaram priya isha martyam. So this body which is so dear, they no longer remember it. And they're so absorbed on their family, their sons, their friends, their wives, and so on, their possessions. So they're so absorbed in all that they don't really remember what is, they forget everything, their body. Well, I think that means something else here. Anyhow, they don't, because of their absorption in thinking that the body, the pleasures of the body are more important, they don't think of anything else except their own family and their own friends and so on. But those people who have attained Krishna, his lotus feet, whose hearts have become full of desire to smell the fragrance from your lotus feet. So those who talk about Krishna and whose hearts are filled with that desire to smell the sweet fragrance of Krishna's lotus feet that are emanating from you, O lotus-naveled one. For them, they don't remember anything more about what was dear to this body, including all the things that are connected: wives, family, children, wealth, stature, and so on. So for a devotee, those things no longer hold any attraction. That's the important thing. All right. So that's the verse with remembering Dhruva Maharaj. But Dhruva Maharaj has said, so the whole story of Dhruva Maharaj was to bring us to the point of recognizing that he is the paramārtha-murti. That's what Jiva Goswami wants us to take home from this Dhruva, by remembering Dhruva Maharaj. This is what the story of Dhruva Maharaj, encapsulated in one word, paramārtha-murti, that Krishna is himself the ultimate goal, and having attained Krishna, all other things were rendered as insignificant and even a cause of some shame. Jai Jai Sri Radhe, Jai Jai Sri Radhe, Jai Jai Sri Radhe Shyam.